So I will end by talking about money. Um, so it's quite interesting, whenever people talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about some of the regulatory challenges, the technical challenges, the ethical challenges associated with it. And few people actually talk about the cost. There is a perception, an inaccurate perception, I would argue, that as a consequence of relying on artificial intelligence, costs will go down. And what we've done is we've actually tried to look at this issue specifically within the context of road safety. And we look at this for two reasons. The first is that transportation is probably the single greatest predictor of upward economic mobility. So Raj Shetty over in the econ department has done some wonderful work on this. The second reason we look at transportation is that many determinants of public health outcomes often lie outside the healthcare sector itself. So when we look at data from the WHO, for example, it's about 1.3 million people die every year in road accidents. In the United States, it's about 40,000. And if you look at the economic harm that is caused as a result, it's close to $1 trillion. So about 250 billion of that is court costs, et cetera. About 500 billion of that is loss of valuation of human life. Okay, and most of these accidents are caused by what? Anyone? Distraction, so distracted driving, drinking and driving, and speeding. So it's all human error. I'm sure everyone is familiar with driverless cars, right? It's supposed to be the utopia that should be here 3 years ago. The general premise is very simple. If you hand control of your vehicle over to these algorithms, you are assured a safer ride. In essence, the promise of this technology is that it would save lives. And we've asked a very simple question, which is, whose lives are we actually saving? So this is data from the National Household Travel Survey. This is current for 2017. What you're looking at on the vertical axis, essentially, is the average life of a vehicle in a household. And on the horizontal axis, what you are looking at is the amount of money the household actually makes. And what you should see is a very clear trend, essentially, that the more money a house makes, the newer its car is. And the reason why that matters is if you look at accidents on the nation's roads today, these accidents disproportionately involve older vehicles. They disproportionately involve poor people. And the reason why is because older vehicles lack very advanced safety features, things like blind spot detectors, et cetera. Put simply, if there's one group that stands to benefit from driverless cars that are fueled by AI algorithms, it's poor people. And the question that we ask is, can poor people actually afford this technology? And the answer, we had a piece last month in the Harvard Business Review, is no. In fact, what we find when you crunch the numbers is that the cost of using a driverless car for poor people in the United States would be approximately 3.5 times higher than owning an older vehicle today. 3.5 times higher. The current cost of car ownership for a poor person is about 52 cents a mile. We estimate the cost of using a driverless car to be closer to $1.60. Fueled by advances in machine learning, artificial intelligence, this technology absolutely has the potential to save lives. In fact, if it were to pare down fatalities, it would rank as being one of the most significant public health achievements in human history. But the question I think we all have to ask is, when it comes to artificial intelligence, whose lives are we saving? Technology might have the potential to improve public health outcomes. But if technology doesn't work for all people, regardless of socioeconomic status, it simply doesn't work. And I'll take your questions. Yep.
Does your analysis assume that they own the car, or what about like a driverless Uber where you're just time sharing kind of thing?
We assume that they time share the vehicle. If they were to own, they simply would be unable to afford the car. Yep. Yes, please.
If you factor in cost of the accidents and the subsequent medical costs, how does the arithmetic go for society to pay for those poor people, to subsidize those poor people to
So
have
we've
those
been trying to
cars.
make the case for this. So currently, public revenue pays for about 7% of road accidents. So the current estimate is that on a household basis, a household pays $156 annually to subsidize the cost of medical costs, et cetera. There is certainly a case to be made for that. It depends on the annual mileage that a person would travel. It's currently about 12,000 miles a year.
So actually, I really appreciate your highlighting the economics of it, and I'll want to get your perspective on an issue that is being faced in India and the government of Rajasthan. But there's a trade-off they're deciding to make. Do they actually invest in implementing data-related AI solutions, or do they actually look at other public health measures? And there's a fixed pie of money. How do you make that trade-off, and what's got the biggest impact? And there is no data that they could find or we could find, and government of India is making big leaps into saying this is the answer. But is that the answer?
I've not seen data suggesting either way, I have to be quite frank. I don't think there is any data on this. Essentially, trying to figure out if you have a limited pool of data, where do you invest your money, right? So.